The rain was falling in sheets that night, the kind of New York storm that made the streets shimmer like broken glass. Danielle Carter clutched her tote bag tighter as she stood under a flickering streetlight, phone in hand, waiting for her ride. It wasn't the first time she'd relied on a taxi app to get her home safely after a late shift, but tonight, something was different. The screen lit up, driver found. Relief washed over her, until, less than a minute later, the message appeared, driver canceled. She frowned, swiped again, and tried once more. Another driver accepted. This time, the little car icon crawled toward her location, then stopped, and the request vanished. Danielle muttered under her breath. Maybe it was the rain, maybe the traffic. She didn't want to believe the uneasy thought creeping up her spine, that somehow the problem was her. Still, as the cancellations piled up, the night grew longer, colder, and lonelier. She'd lived in the city long enough to recognize the way people sometimes looked at her, the split-second pause, the narrowed eyes, the quiet assumptions made before she even said a word. But behind the screen of a taxi app, wasn't she just another passenger? A name, a profile picture, a destination, nothing more. Yet the rejection was relentless. 1, 2, 3 drivers gone, then 5, then 7. She refreshed, restarted, even switched Wi-Fi to data. No luck. The app kept finding her rides, and the rides kept slipping away. Her phone buzzed with a message from her friend Claire, a classmate from grad school who lived just a few blocks away. "Want me to call one for you? I'm already home." Danielle hesitated, then replied, "Yeah, try." 2 minutes later, Claire's text came through. "Got one instantly. ETA 4 minutes." Danielle felt her stomach sink. It wasn't the weather. It wasn't the traffic. It wasn't random. It was her. She watched headlights glide past her corner, cars that should have stopped but didn't. Each one felt like a reminder that some doors never opened for her the same way they did for others. A drizzle ran down her face, blurring with the sting in her eyes. For a moment, she thought about just walking the 20 blocks home. But the city at night was no place to gamble with safety, not when you were alone, not when you were visibly different in a neighborhood that made you stand out. Instead, she stood there, soaked and trembling, and whispered to herself, "Why does this always have to be harder?" That night was just the beginning. Danielle didn't know it yet, but this small act of being denied a ride, something so invisible, so easy for others to shrug off, would unravel into a much larger truth, a truth about how prejudice could hide inside the very systems people trusted every day. The rain eventually slowed. Claire's driver showed up, headlights cutting through the mist, a stranger ready to take Danielle home. But as she stepped into the back seat, her thoughts weren't on comfort or safety. They were on the pattern she'd just witnessed. And once she saw it, she knew she couldn't unsee it. Because this wasn't just one ride. It was a mirror held up to something much bigger, something that had been lurking beneath the surface all along. And Danielle was about to find out just how deep it went. If stories like Danielle strike a chord with you, if you believe these truths need to be heard, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your voice helps amplify hers. The next morning, Danielle couldn't shake the feeling from her bones. It wasn't just the rain or the lateness of the hour. It was the way the app had turned her into someone invisible. She sat at her kitchen table, coffee steaming in a chipped mug, scrolling through her phone like a detective chasing a lead. Her profile picture stared back at her. Danielle, brown skin glowing in the afternoon light, her natural curls framing her face. She wondered if that single snapshot was enough for strangers to decide she wasn't worth picking up. This sounded paranoid. She told herself that more than once. But then she remembered Claire's ride had arrived instantly. Same street, same time, same weather. The only difference? Claire's pale face in her photo, and a name that didn't raise questions. Danielle decided she couldn't let it go. If she was wrong, fine, but if she was right. She changed her profile picture. Instead of her own photo, she uploaded an old shot of a dog, just for testing. She called for a ride. Within 2 minutes, a car was on its way. No cancellations, no excuses. Her pulse quickened. She canceled the ride before the driver arrived, then tried again, this time with her photo back in place. The cycle repeated. Driver found, driver canceled, over and over until the app almost mocked her with its relentless rejection. It wasn't her imagination. It was happening. Danielle decided to go further. She borrowed Claire's phone and used her account. Same location, same destination, even the same time of day. Within 3 minutes, a car pulled up for Claire. Danielle, standing right beside her, tried with her own account and was left staring at a gray searching for drivers screen. Claire looked at her, stunned. That's insane. It can't be just coincidence. Danielle laughed bitterly. Coincidence doesn't cancel me 10 times in a row. She tried another test with a friend from work, Alex, who happened to be white and male. Using Alex's phone, Danielle entered her home address. In less than 4 minutes, a driver was at the curb. Danielle then tried again with her own account. Nothing. The truth was ugly, but undeniable. For Danielle, the discovery felt like being hit with cold water, except this water didn't dry. It lingered, a damp chill that clung to her all day. Every time she opened the app, she wasn't just calling for a ride, she was exposing herself to rejection over and over from strangers who hadn't even met her. She thought about deleting the app, boycotting it entirely, but a part of her refused to back down. If she just walked away, then what? The system would keep running. Other people who looked like her would keep facing the same silent discrimination, never knowing why they couldn't get home. So Danielle did what she always did when the world tried to push her into silence. She leaned in closer, sharper, determined to see just how deep the wound went. She began documenting every ride request, screenshots, timestamps, side-by-side comparisons with Claire and Alex's successful rides. She built a small folder of evidence, each file a little sharper than the last, cutting away any room for denial. But evidence alone wasn't enough. Danielle wanted answers. Why were the drivers canceling her? Was it personal? Was it systemic? Was it the company itself, or just individuals making biased choices? She started asking questions in forums, places where drivers chatted anonymously about routes, customers, and pay. Most responses were vague, defensive, or outright hostile. You're imagining things. Drivers cancel for a million reasons. Don't make everything about race. But one anonymous user left a comment that stopped Danielle cold. Some drivers avoid certain neighborhoods. Some avoid certain profiles. It's not official policy, but let's just say people talk. Danielle stared at the words, the cursor blinking back at her like a dare. Somewhere in that half-confession, she saw the beginning of the truth. The question now wasn't whether discrimination existed. It was how far it went, and who was protecting it. That night, lying awake in bed, she promised herself one thing. She would dig deeper. Because this wasn't just about a ride. It was about dignity. About being seen, about refusing to let the world erase her with the swipe of a screen. And Danielle was done being erased. The following week, Danielle's determination only sharpened. She wasn't just annoyed anymore, she was angry. And beneath that anger pulsed a quiet kind of resolve. Each time her phone flashed, "Driver canceled," she added another entry to her growing collection of evidence. Screenshots filled her gallery like silent witnesses, each one proof that her suspicion wasn't a fantasy, it was reality. But screenshots only told part of the story. Danielle wanted the whole picture, and to get it, she needed to talk to the people behind the wheel. Her opportunity came sooner than expected. One afternoon, after yet another round of cancellations, she finally caught a ride with a middle-aged driver named Victor. He was chatty, humming along to the radio as rain patted on the windshield. Danielle studied his eyes in the rearview mirror before blurting out, "Can I ask you something? Why do drivers cancel so often, especially when they see someone like me?"
The humming stopped. Victor hesitated, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. "Look," he said carefully, "drivers cancel for lots of reasons. Sometimes the trip is too short. Sometimes it doesn't pay enough." Danielle leaned forward. "And sometimes?" His silence said more than his words. Finally, he muttered, "Sometimes drivers, they don't want trouble. Certain neighborhoods, certain people, that's just how it is." Danielle felt her jaw tighten. "So I'm trouble because of my face?" Victor didn't answer. He turned up the volume on the radio, the conversation dissolving into static. But Danielle had heard enough. Later that evening, she tried again with another driver, this time an older woman named Rosa. As the car glided through the streets, Danielle asked the same question. Rosa shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Off the record," she whispered, "some drivers share tips, unofficial stuff, like which areas are safe, which passengers are worth it. People pass around lists sometimes, names even, pictures." "Pictures?" Danielle's heart skipped. "Where?" Rosa's hands gripped the wheel. "I don't know, online, private groups. I've never been in one, but they exist. That's all I know." Danielle sank back into her seat, the city lights blurring past. Lists, pictures, unofficial rules. It wasn't just her imagination, or even a handful of biased drivers. It was something bigger, organized, hidden. That night, Danielle sat at her laptop, determined to dig. She scoured message boards, forums, obscure driver chat rooms. Most were locked behind memberships, but occasionally she found traces. Threads quickly deleted, whispers that confirmed Rosa's words, words like avoid, flag, not worth the risk. Her fingers trembled as she screenshotted one half-erased post. "We all know the trick. If you see the profile and it looks like trouble, just cancel. Better safe than sorry." Danielle read it over and over, bile rising in her throat. Trouble. That was the word they used. Trouble because of her skin, her hair, her name. Trouble because she didn't fit the picture of the ideal customer. The more she searched, the clearer it became this wasn't random. It was patterned, deliberate, and silently tolerated. A shadow network thriving under the surface of an app that claimed to connect people. But uncovering it wouldn't be easy. Each post vanished as quickly as it appeared. Screenshots alone wouldn't carry the weight she needed. She needed something undeniable. She needed someone on the inside. And then, one night, a new message appeared in her inbox. Anonymous. No profile picture, no details. Just a single line. "You're not wrong. But if you want proof, you'll have to dig deeper than forums. There's a private group, invite only, and they talk about everything." Danielle's breath caught. She typed back, "How do I find it?" The cursor blinked. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, another line appeared. "You don't. They find you." Danielle sat frozen, her laptop screen casting a pale glow across her living room. She had stepped into something far larger than she imagined. The question wasn't whether she could handle it. It was whether she dared to keep going. Because once she crossed this line, there would be no turning back.
Danielle didn't sleep that night. Her apartment, usually her refuge, felt like a watchtower. The glow of her laptop was the only light, illuminating a face caught between fear and determination. She kept returning to that anonymous message, "You don't. They find you." What did that even mean? How could she get into a group that only appeared to those already chosen? The next few days, Danielle experimented. She lingered on different forums longer than usual, replied to threads she would normally ignore, and dropped vague comments about cancellations and patterns she'd noticed. She wasn't reckless. She chose her words carefully, never outright accusing, but she wanted whoever had contacted her to know she was willing to dig deeper. And then it happened. A new message appeared. If you really want to see, we'll let you peek, but once you're in, you can't act surprised. Attached was a link. Danielle hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her not to click. It could be a trap, a scam, or worse. But her stronger instinct, the one that had pushed her this far, told her the truth she was chasing might finally be within reach. She clicked. The page opened to what looked like an ordinary group forum. A bland design, no logos, nothing flashy. But the posts, they were anything but ordinary. Danielle scrolled, heart pounding as words and phrases leapt off the screen. Flag profiles with low ratings, most of the time you can tell. Certain zip codes equal automatic cancel, not worth the risk. And then, bluntly, black girls with natural hair, pass. Always drama, always attitude. Danielle's hands trembled on the keyboard. These weren't slips of bias hidden behind polite excuses. This was explicit, organized, and worse, nobody was hiding it. Scrolling further, she saw screenshots of passenger profiles, people's photos, names, sometimes even addresses, posted as warnings for other drivers. Some had red circles drawn around their faces, captions like "avoid" or "watch out." Danielle's throat tightened as she realized this wasn't just about her. It was dozens, maybe hundreds of others. The cruelest part, some posts disguised the bias under jokes. Guess who just dodged another cancel-worthy pickup? #LuckyMe. The comments were filled with laughing emojis, digital applause for exclusion. Danielle wanted to scream, to throw her laptop across the room. But she forced herself to stay calm, to document everything, screenshots, video recordings of her scrolling, anything that could serve as evidence. She knew if she exposed this, the denials would come fast and hard. She had to be ready. As she saved file after file, another message popped up. Same anonymous user. Now you see, but what are you going to do with it? Danielle stared at the words, anger burning through her exhaustion. She typed back, "Tell the world." The reply came quickly. "Then be careful. People protect their own." Danielle logged off, but the warning stayed with her. This wasn't just a handful of bigoted drivers. It was a culture, silent, pervasive, protected by secrecy and denial. And if she exposed it, she'd be up against not only individuals, but a system built to dismiss voices like hers. The next morning, Danielle tested the app again. Predictably, the cycle repeated. Cancel, cancel, cancel. But this time, she didn't feel powerless. Every driver canceled notification was fuel. Every denial was proof. Still, she couldn't do this alone. She needed allies. Someone with reach, someone who could amplify her evidence before it was swept away. The company had ignored her once, but maybe the press wouldn't. That evening, Danielle drafted her first email to a local journalist she admired, attaching a few of her screenshots. She hesitated before hitting send, knowing that once she did, her life could change in ways she couldn't control. Her finger hovered over the trackpad. Then she whispered the same words she'd said to herself on that rainy night. "Why does this always have to be harder?" And with a deep breath, she clicked send. Danielle has uncovered a hidden network that thrives on discrimination, but exposing it will take more than evidence. Stay tuned as her fight intensifies. If you believe these stories need light, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
The journalist never replied. Danielle refreshed her inbox a dozen times that week, waiting for something, anything, but all she found were promotions, newsletters, and spam. Her carefully crafted email, the screenshots, the hours of documenting, it all seemed to vanish into silence. Frustrated, she decided to bypass the media and go straight to the source, the company itself. After all, their slogan plastered on billboards across the city promised rides for everyone, everywhere. Surely, if they saw what she'd uncovered, they would have to act. She spent an entire evening drafting her message. Calm, professional, impossible to ignore. She attached proof, dozens of screenshots, timestamps, even her side-by-side experiments comparing her account with Claire's and Alex's. She closed with a single demand, an explanation. The next morning, she got her response. Dear Danielle, thank you for reaching out. We take reports like these very seriously. Our system is designed to provide equal access for all users. Driver cancellations occur for various reasons unrelated to race or identity. Factors may include traffic conditions, trip length, or driver availability. We regret the inconvenience. Sincerely, Customer Experience Team. Danielle stared at the screen, her hands curling into fists. Variety of reasons. Inconvenience. They hadn't even addressed her evidence. It was a template, cold, dismissive, and empty. She replied instantly. This isn't inconvenience. This is discrimination. I have proof. Are you saying those screenshots mean nothing? Hours later, another reply came. Shorter this time, even icier. As previously stated, cancellations are not related to race. Our algorithms are neutral. Thank you for your understanding. Algorithms. Neutral. Danielle almost laughed. Neutral was what people claimed when they didn't want to admit their systems had been poisoned. Her phone buzzed with another message, this time from the anonymous contact. You tried the company, didn't you? Danielle froze. How did they know? She typed back quickly. Yes, they ignored me. Of course they did. They've known for years. Her heart skipped. What do you mean, they've known? The response was chillingly blunt. The system is built that way. Neutral is their shield, but every shield hides a weapon. Danielle sat back, the words sinking in. If the company itself was complicit, or at the very least, willfully blind, then she wasn't just up against rogue drivers or shady groups. She was up against a corporate giant with money, lawyers, and polished PR statements. The idea of going public suddenly felt heavier. What if they smeared her? What if they buried her evidence? But then she remembered the sting of the rain that night, the humiliation of watching car after car pass her by, the word trouble hanging in her mind like a scar. She couldn't back down. Not now. She reached out to a civil rights lawyer she'd seen on a podcast once, drafting a careful email. This time, she didn't just send screenshots. She attached her entire documented case file. 2 days later, her phone rang. The lawyer's voice was firm, steady, reassuring. Danielle, what you've gathered is more than anecdotal. It's evidence. If the company won't listen, then maybe a court will. For the first time in weeks, Danielle felt a flicker of hope. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't alone. Someone believed her. But hope came with fear. This wasn't going to be easy. Taking on a corporation meant risking everything, her privacy, her safety, maybe even her livelihood. But Danielle's mind was set. She'd been canceled too many times, erased too many times. Now it was her turn to make sure she couldn't be ignored. She closed her laptop with a decisive snap. The next phase of the fight was about to begin.
The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Marisol Vega, didn't waste time. Within days of their first call, Danielle was sitting in a corner booth of a quiet cafe, her laptop open, as Marisol scrolled through the mountain of evidence Danielle had compiled. "This is good," Marisol said, her tone calm but serious. "But corporations don't move on screenshots. They'll call it anecdotal, circumstantial. What we need is undeniable, controlled evidence. Something that proves discrimination isn't just possible, it's inevitable." Danielle leaned forward. "How do we get that?" Marisol smiled faintly. "We run an experiment." The plan was deceptively simple. Create multiple accounts, one with Danielle's photo and name, one with Claire's, one with Alex's, and request rides at the exact same times from the exact same locations to the exact same destinations. If Danielle's account was consistently canceled while the others weren't, the pattern would be impossible to dismiss. Danielle's heart raced as she agreed. For the next week, her evenings turned into a bizarre routine of synchronized ride requests. Claire and Alex were eager to help, their faces glowing in the blue light of their phones as they tapped Request Ride in unison with Danielle. The results were immediate. Claire's rides accepted in under 3 minutes. Alex's even faster. Danielle's cancel after cancel after cancel. One night the contrast was so absurd it felt like a cruel joke. Danielle's request was rejected 11 times in a row, while Alex had a driver waiting at the curb before Danielle's screen had even reset. Claire filmed the entire sequence, narrating each step, her disbelief turning to outrage. "This is insane," she muttered, shaking her head. "It's like the app has a filter." By the end of the week, Danielle's folder of evidence had grown into something undeniable. Dozens of videos, side-by-side comparisons, timestamps, GPS data. It was airtight. Marisol reviewed it all, her expression grim. "This isn't just a lawsuit, it's a story. And if you want the public on your side, we need the story out there before the company tries to spin it." Danielle nodded, her stomach twisting. The idea of becoming the face of such a fight scared her more than she wanted to admit, but fear had never been the final word in her life. Through Marisol's network, they reached out to a journalist at a major city paper, someone who had covered systemic discrimination before and wouldn't be intimidated by corporate pushback. The journalist, a wiry man named Jordan, met Danielle in a downtown office, recorder in hand. He said, "Tell me everything." And Danielle did. She told him about the rainy night, the cancellations, the anonymous message, the secret forum, the laughter at her expense, the word trouble that wouldn't leave her. She showed him her evidence. Jordan didn't just nod, he leaned forward, his jaw tightening, his pen moving faster with every detail. "This is bigger than a bad night," he said finally. "This is systemic, and once people see it, they won't forget it." Danielle left that meeting with equal parts dread and anticipation. The article would take weeks to prepare, Jordan warned, but when it dropped, it would hit hard. That night, she received another anonymous message. "I see what you're doing. Be careful. They won't just roll over. They'll fight back." Danielle typed back, her fingers steady. "So will I." The fight had moved beyond rainy nights and canceled rides. Now it was about exposure, about dragging what was hidden into the light. And Danielle was ready to face whatever storm came next.
The article dropped on a Monday morning. Danielle woke up to her phone buzzing like a hornet's nest. Texts, emails, notifications stacked on top of one another. She blinked at the screen, her heart leaping as she saw Jordan's headline splashed across the front page of the city's most read digital paper. "When algorithms cancel, the hidden bias in rideshare apps." Her name was right there, quoted, her photo included. Danielle Carter wasn't just a commuter anymore. She was the face of a fight. By noon, the story was everywhere. Morning shows dissected the findings, radio hosts debated algorithms, and social media exploded with hashtags. Hashtag canceled rides, hashtag invisible passenger, hashtag rideshare bias. Danielle sat in her tiny living room, laptop open, scrolling through tweets. Some were supportive. People of color sharing their own stories of being ghosted by drivers, of waiting endlessly while their friends caught rides in seconds. Others were cruel, dismissing her as paranoid or playing the race card. The noise was deafening, but through it all, Danielle saw one thing clearly. People were talking. The silence had been broken. By the end of the week, the company finally responded. Their official statement filled with glossy language. "We value diversity. We are committed to equal access.
Our system is neutral. Any discrepancies are unfortunate coincidences. Danielle almost threw her phone across the room. Neutral. Coincidence. The same hollow words as before. But this time, the world wasn't buying it. Commentators slammed the company for hiding behind PR jargon. Activists staged demonstrations outside the company's headquarters holding signs that read, "We're not invisible," and "Cancel discrimination, not rides." Even city council members began to chime in, demanding answers. Then came the flood. Danielle's inbox filled with stories from strangers, dozens, then hundreds, each one echoing her experience. A grandmother in Chicago, a college student in Atlanta, a nurse in Los Angeles. People canceled, ignored, erased, not because of trip length or traffic, but because of their skin. Danielle read each story with tears in her eyes. It wasn't just her fight anymore. It was theirs too. But with visibility came danger. One night, Danielle returned home to find her mailbox stuffed with an envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper with the words, "You're making this worse for yourself." No signature, no return address. Her chest tightened. Fear clawed at her throat. But when she called Marisol, the lawyer's voice was calm and resolute. "That's intimidation. It means they're scared, which means we're winning." The threats didn't stop Danielle. If anything, they fueled her fire. She agreed to speak at a rally downtown, standing on a makeshift stage as rain drizzled over the crowd. With a microphone trembling in her hand, she looked out at the faces, black, brown, white, all gathered for one cause. "They told me the system was neutral," she said, voice cracking but steady. "But neutrality doesn't cancel me 10 times in a row. Neutrality doesn't laugh at my face in a secret forum. Neutrality doesn't erase my dignity with a swipe of a screen. Neutrality is a lie, and we're here to prove it." The crowd erupted, chants echoing off glass buildings. For the first time since that rainy night, when she'd stood abandoned on the corner, Danielle felt seen, not as a problem, not as trouble, but as a voice. And voices, once united, could be louder than any algorithm. Still, Danielle knew the hardest part was yet to come. The company couldn't ignore her anymore, but how far would they go to silence her?
The hearing room was packed. Rows of wooden benches overflowed with journalists, activists, and everyday citizens who had read Danielle's story and felt it in their bones. At the front, beneath the seal of the city council, a long table waited. On one side, Danielle, with Marisol by her side, and on the other, a team of corporate representatives in crisp suits, their polished smiles hiding sharpened teeth. Danielle's palms were slick with sweat. The chamber buzzed with murmurs, camera flashes popping like lightning. She remembered the first night of rain, the string of cancellations, the feeling of invisibility. And now here she was, her voice about to echo across a city that once ignored her. The council chair cleared his throat. "We are here today to address allegations of systemic discrimination in ride-share services. Ms. Carter, you may begin." Danielle stood. Her knees trembled, but her voice did not. "My name is Danielle Carter. I'm not a programmer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a woman who wanted a ride home. And I was denied again and again, not because of traffic, not because of price, but because of the face I was born with." Gasps rippled through the room. Danielle opened the folder in front of her, sliding forward the documented evidence. Screenshots, videos, side-by-side comparisons. The council members leaned in, expressions hardening as they watched the undeniable patterns unfold. Marisol followed with a sharp explanation of the legal framework, the civil rights violations, the way neutral algorithms were used as a shield while discriminatory practices thrived in the shadows. She ended with one phrase that landed like a hammer. Technology is only as fair as the humans who build and use it. When it was the company's turn, their spokesperson, a man with slicked back hair and a rehearsed smile, spoke of isolated incidents and misunderstandings. He assured the council their systems had no racial bias, but his words rang hollow against the mountain of evidence Danielle had presented. Then came the moment Danielle would never forget. A council member leaned forward and asked the spokesperson, "If your system is truly neutral, how do you explain that Ms. Carter was denied rides 11 times in one night, while her white colleague received one in under 4 minutes from the same location?" The spokesperson faltered. His mouth opened, then closed. He glanced at his notes, then at his team, but no words came. The silence stretched, filling the chamber with the weight of truth. By the end of the hearing, the verdict was clear. The council announced a formal investigation, new regulations, and an immediate suspension of certain company practices. Drivers found participating in discriminatory forums would be banned. The company itself faced penalties and public scrutiny that no PR statement could wash away. As Danielle stepped outside into the crisp evening air, reporters swarmed her, microphones extended, cameras flashing. But beneath the chaos, she felt something quiet inside her. Peace. She had not been erased. She had not been silenced. She had turned her pain into power. That night, Danielle walked home, not because she had to, but because she wanted to feel the pavement under her feet, the city alive around her. For once, the streets didn't feel hostile. They felt hers. And though the fight was far from over, Danielle knew she had cracked something open. A system designed to keep her invisible had been forced to see her. And through her, countless others who had been canceled, ignored, and dismissed now had a voice. The rain began to fall again, soft and steady. Danielle tilted her head up, letting it wash over her face. This time, the storm wasn't erasure. It was renewal.
Danielle's story began with a rainy night and a phone screen flashing, "Driver canceled." Something so small, so easy to dismiss, became the doorway to a truth too big to ignore. What she discovered wasn't just her own struggle. It was a mirror held up to the systems we trust every day, revealing how bias can seep into technology, hide behind algorithms, and erase people without ever showing its face. Her journey shows us that discrimination doesn't always shout. It whispers in cancellations, in silence, in the quiet patterns we're told to overlook. But silence only holds power until someone dares to speak. Danielle spoke, and in doing so, she reminded us that technology is never neutral when the humans behind it carry prejudice. From late-night cancellations to city hall hearings, from anonymous warnings to public rallies, Danielle transformed invisibility into visibility. She reminded everyone watching that fairness isn't given, it's demanded. Her courage turned humiliation into proof, fear into momentum, and isolation into community. And in the end, what began as one woman left stranded in the rain became a movement that forced an entire company and an entire city to listen. If you've ever felt unseen, if you've ever been told your experience was just coincidence, let Danielle's story remind you your truth matters. And the moment you share it, you take back the power others tried to erase. These stories need voices, yours included. If Danielle's fight resonated with you, don't let it end here. Like, share, and subscribe to make sure her courage and the courage of countless others continues to echo where silence once ruled. Together, we turn cancellations into change.